Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Blogging411, a show that happens every Wednesday night for 30 minutes starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about everything blogging. A couple of announcements. We just threw a link into the Google Plus event, and we now have a very nice and neat organized place where you can apply to be a guest on the show. You just answer a couple of questions, apply, and then we are happy to chat with you and get you scheduled. I would love to go ahead and let my guests introduce themselves, or my co-hosts, introduce themselves. Allison, why don't you go ahead?
Randy, I think she's kicking us off the show. That's what I got from that.
It sounds like.
My name is Allison Carter. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm definitely a blogger right now. I've been doing this for about 5 years. I do content strategy and marketing for companies, blog consultations, and my URL is allisonbcarter.com.
And my name is Randy Brown. I am a webmaster, website owner, and a little bit of a blogger. And I own a website hosting company at ihelpers.net, where we can help you get up and online quickly and inexpensively.
And again, my name is Nikol Murphy, and I am the co-founder of NC Blogger Network, which is the host for our show, along with Allison. And I also blog over at momcomplicated.com. So tonight we are going to talk about blog ethics. And one of the things I really kind of wanted to talk about first, right off the bat, was, obviously there's ethics in every industry across the board, but bloggers and journalists have kind of, I don't want to say they go head to head, but should bloggers be held to the same accountability levels and the same levels as journalists? Should they even be in the same pool together? Should they be held to the same level of responsibility? Randy, why don't you go ahead and let me know what you think about that?
Well, to me, I don't think they're really the same. So to me, a journalist is somebody that's educated, went to school, or has spent a lot of time in the industry, knows how to write, knows what fact-checking is, has a minimal level of intelligence, has a boss over them, an editor saying, let's print this, let's change that, let's not print this, let's not print that. And I expect a higher standard out of a journalist. A blogger, to me, myself included, is the same as just some guy on the street spewing whatever he feels like spewing at that particular moment. So when I go to somebody's blog and they say something or make some claim, I don't take that. I have to take it with a bag of salt and consider that, oh, this guy's just a blogger. He's just some slob on the street that I don't know. And I don't know if what he's saying is right or wrong or true or not. Now then there's some gray level in between, because then you get the big time bloggers. And when you hit a certain magic level, and I don't know what that level is, but at some point when you start, you can turn into a journalist, and you can be on that same level. So it's tough to say where that line is. So generally, if you're a blogger, I don't believe anything you say, as opposed to a journalist. In my opinion, I would like to believe what you say, but sadly, I've seen them come together. 20 years ago, journalists actually checked facts. They did all those things that I mentioned earlier. Now it seems like most journalists just kind of dictate whatever the guy up on stage is saying and don't think it through, don't fact check anything. And too many times you just see journalists screwing up like bloggers do. So. Maybe the bloggers are getting better and the journalists are getting worse, but I don't know. To me, they're different until you hit that magic level, and I don't know what that magic level is. Allison, don't cough at what I have to say.
Oh, you caught that? I think that it's there's so much in what Randy just said that we could spend like hours unpacking. And I was an English major with a journalism minor who actually worked at a bunch of newspapers for a while, and I loved it. And I'm a blogger now. And I think a lot of what Randy says is true. We definitely hold a different level of credibility with a journalist. And I also think that it's true that journalists tend to be slipping these days. I'm not entirely sure that they are to blame for that. I think that in today's media market where things have to move quickly, and if you don't get it out, then you get penalized because you're behind the times getting it out on Twitter or getting it out on the journalist's blog, and that makes them rush to publicize.
Yeah, the values have changed. The values are different today for even a journalist, like you said. So in 30 years ago, 20 years ago, what was important was getting the correct information to people, letting the people know. And that's, I think, the role of the journalist is getting accurate information out there. Now what's most important is getting it there first. It doesn't have to be right. Nobody seems to care if it's right. Just get it first. Get it first. That's all that matters. Or if, the helicopter happens to be over a garage that's on fire, then, well, that's breaking news. So the whole value system has changed, and that's...
Yeah, and our public is definitely okay these days with apologies later. Like, tell me first, apologize later, and that wasn't always the case. When you got your news by newspaper and you waited for that Sunday edition to come, it had to be right. And there's definitely a lot of journalists who still are very strongly attached to that ethic, and I don't want to sound as though we're coming off saying, like, oh, journalists aren't doing fact-checking anymore. I don't think that's the case. I just think there's a lot of pressure for them to get the news out there quickly. And then if you unpack the other side of what Randy said and what we're talking about is, are bloggers journalists, and do bloggers have to do the same fact-checking and stuff? I agree with what Randy said, that a lot of times when you approach a blog or you read a blogger, you're thinking automatically like, oh, this is just like, they can say whatever they want. It's their blog. Yeah, it's their blog. However, I will add that if you want to be a serious blogger and if you want to be taken seriously, yeah, you have to fact check and you have to treat yourself like a journalist, right? So I think that if you really want business, I mean, like Randy with his blogs for his business, he's not going to put anything out there that he knows to be untrue or he knows to be false, because that that violates with his credibility as a business. And it's the same thing as a blogger. Like, you want to be true to what is actually the case. And if you're going for sensationalism and you're going for just spouting out something even if you don't think it's true or you know it's not true, you don't care if it's true, then people are going to see through that eventually, and you're not going to be a trusted source. So the big bloggers now, if they start to say stuff that's untrue or they're not fact-checking or they're just being sensationalist, people stop following them and they get called out on it. So I think it depends on where you're going with your blog and how you look at yourself and the standard you hold yourself to.
Alrighty then. And we were worried about if we were going to have enough to say today. So I would say that the next thing is giving proper credit for ideas. This seems to be probably the second most hot topic that I hear about, where, there are a lot of common topics that a lot of bloggers will address at the same time of year, and they will, kind of step on each other, and then people get their feelings hurt, and they think, oh, you got this idea from me, or you heard about this. So where is the line as far as giving proper credit when it actually is due, when it's not necessary, and then when it gets ridiculous and you're like, I heard it from Susie, who heard it from Jan, who saw it on so-and-so's blog, and then in 1952 my grandma did it, and that's why I think I should be able to post this recipe. And so Allison, why don't you go ahead first on that one, because I just chose you, and that's it.
Yeah, I like that. I'm okay with that. God, that is such a difficult answer, and I think that there are so many shades of gray in there. But the fact of the matter is, if you are inspired by somebody else, or you are writing about something because of somebody else, then you are. And there's no way around that. Obviously, when it comes down to Halloween, talk about carving pumpkins. Duh, everybody's going to talk about carving pumpkins or fancy Halloween treats. But if you go onto Pinterest and you see a pin of somebody who made mummy pops, and then you go on your blog and you make mummy pops, it's a little, right? You guys know what I'm saying. Even if it's hard to describe, you know where it's coming from.
Yes.
Bloggers don't mind being inspiration. They don't mind having a link back to them. They don't mind being promoted as a mentor or somebody who provides thought catalog for other bloggers, but you can't just lift ideas. You can't.
Yeah, you know when you're writing something because you went to Joe Blow's blog and you copied and pasted it and changed a few words, you know that I mean, you know right and wrong. Most of us, my mother taught me right and wrong, even though she never talked about blogs. But if you're stealing it, well, then if you give them credit, then you're not really stealing it. But there is that fine line. There's a big, wide gray area where you got the idea and then you added your twist to it. And sometimes I'll do that. I'll see somebody wrote about something, and that gives me the idea to go write about the same thing or something similar, and I'll just put in, oh, sometimes I'll say I saw in Joe Blow's blog this, and it made me think of that. And then depending on how similar it is, maybe I'll actually give them a link, but I at least give them a hat tip sometimes. It depends. So that Allison's right. There is a wide gray area, but it boils down to right and wrong. It's right to give credit, and it's wrong to steal. And sometimes you have to dance the gray area and figure it out on your own.
That's true. And I would say that I know we've all run into this situation too, and it doesn't necessarily fall under the code of ethics for bloggers or anything, but when you have something already either scheduled or percolated in your brain, and then you see somebody else post about it, and you're like, oh, now it totally is going to look like I ripped them off because my post is scheduled to post in 2 days, and they just published theirs today. So I've just moved mine sometimes.
Another thing to remember is that unless you know that person follows you, I mean, your audience is probably completely different from my audience, and I could totally copy and paste one of your blogs and put it on my website and pretend it was mine, and nobody would know. I guess the point is that because we have such different audiences, I'm not so worried that, oh my gosh, you're going to see that I copied it and think this or that. I mean, if I was copying it, then that's one thing. But if I just had the same idea, I'm not too concerned that you're going to see it and think that I stole your idea. So just remember your audience.
It might be a two-way girl thing, by the way.
Well, I think that there are certain things that track in the public dialogue for a reason. Like, there are certain topics that come up when they do, and there are certain conversations that you want to jump into as a blogger, and that doesn't mean that you're copying that person's idea, right? I mean, it's in your mind for a reason, like it's in everybody's mind for a reason. You'd be silly not to talk about it if it's on everybody's mind. And even though it might be the same idea as somebody else, if you bring your own unique take to it and you provide it in a way or package it in a way that is your own brand and your own stamp, then that's not violating ethics at all. And I just want to be really clear that Randy is not advocating that you cut and paste somebody else's blog post because they won't see it. I just want to be
I go back to the difference between right and wrong. That would be wrong to do that.
Oh my gosh. So do you guys have any topics along this line, the code of ethics that you see, like a rule that's consistently just broken, or people don't really understand it? I know I have one that I want to bring up, but I wanted to see if you guys knew or were thinking of anything.
I have two. One real quick, I think we've talked about it before, is, and it's the same with blog posts, is images. So I think we've talked about, we all know if it's not your image, you're not supposed to use it. There's plenty of places you can go for free and get images. But there's to me, there's also a little bit of a fine line there, because there's some images that are okay. Maybe the person wants you to use it, or if it's a big brand name, maybe they don't mind if you're showing their product. So there's a little bit of gray area. But that's one that I've to be honest, I've broken that rule myself a few times, is borrowing images. I know, because it's tough. But now that there's so many free places you could get them, back in my day, back in the old days in 2007, there weren't many places where you could go to get decent free images. But now there's several. So, and then you guys can talk about that more, but I'll throw in my second one, and then we can come back and talk about it, is products or I don't want to say advertising, but reviews, that sort of thing. And there's actually laws about, if you're getting paid to review something and you're doing it like a blog post and you've got an affiliate link or something in there. So we can come back and talk about that one if you want. But I want to hear what Allison and you have to say about the borrowing of images or the distribution of images that you like.
Go ahead, Allison.
Well, I mean, Randy said everything, and we talked about it in our photography one as well. Don't steal people's photos. I mean, just don't. And a lot of people now are watermarking their photos so that if they are lifted, the name's in there, but then people will crop it out. Nowadays, it's not the old days anymore, so it feels like nowadays there isn't an excuse to steal somebody's photo. And there are many other opportunities and options. PicMonkey, you can create a graphic. You can get stock photos from so many places. You can take your own with your cell phone in less than 20 seconds. It's just not a good idea.
Getty is giving away a lot of their images now, right? Isn't it Getty that's doing them for free now?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And Nicole stumbled on that. You stumbled on a big deal today, didn't you, Nicole? For stock photos? No?
Oh, I did. Yes, I did. Kelly Phillips from WP Plugin Coach posted it, and I will grab the link really quick. But you know what I was going to point out with the images, this was something that kind of freaked me out, where I'm very conscious about people's, the guidelines and the borders and all of that, but then you want to do like a roundup post, and which is essentially, you're going to grab like, 4 or 5 different great posts that you've seen around on a topic, and like holidays are a perfect time to do that. Well, you want to use the images in the post. So, obviously you can make your own graphic for your main image, but just reaching out to the bloggers and saying, hey, I picked you for a roundup. Can I please use this image that's probably already watermarked? Most people are very, very happy that you're sharing their information and that you intend to attribute it properly. But what if I want to share something like that? So there is that option. Just go ahead and send an email and see. And a lot of blogs already have a terms of use on there where they'll say, you can use anything that's watermarked, please just attribute it. And so just go ahead and take some time and look and read through to see if you can use those images.
Yeah, and golden rule applies. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I mean, how would you feel if you just saw your photo lifted and somebody was claiming it? I mean, think about the way you would want to be treated if that happens. And then Randy's other monster point was sponsorships and product reviews. And
affiliate links.
And affiliate links, yes. And this is a huge area where we all want to monetize our website. We all want to be compensated for the fact that we have a voice and people listen to us, which is fine. No one's saying that you shouldn't do that, but there has got to be transparency about what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you're doing a product review because you were given the product to review, you need to say that up front in the post. Like, this was provided to me in exchange for exchange of my post, but the content is all my own. And then write it in your voice. Like, write it what you really believe, and don't make it a sellout post. And the same thing, if there are affiliate links within there, you are required by the FTC to disclose that there are affiliate links, and you will be given money back.
You're required, just if you're just reviewing a product, if they gave it to you for free, you're also required to disclose that. So that's not just a do it because you're a good person ethics. That's a do it because if you get busted, you're going to get a big fine. So those are real important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think now...
and that goes a long way to keeping trust with your audience and keeping trust with your readers. If they all of a sudden find out... the very first blog that I ever did was all based on going to venues and reviewing the venues as a mom with her kids. So, for example, if I were just to walk into this bounce house, how much does it cost? What is my experience like? What do you need to know if you want to go there and repeat my experience, or should you go at all? And eventually the blog got so big that I had a lot of companies contacting me saying, we would love for you to come out on us and review. And my blog partner and I at the time had a long conversation about that, and we realized that we weren't comfortable with that because it changes the whole scope. The whole idea was that we were secret shoppers. And, you know, if we were going to be now somebody's guest, they were giving us preferential treatment, they were giving us, you know, they knew that we were there as almost like a press opportunity for them, that it just changed everything. And we were going to have to disclose that to our readers and be really clear, like, we came here because we were asked and we were provided free admission. And, you know, it's a lot of stuff, too, about credibility with your readers, in addition to getting a big slap on the wrist if you're breaking laws. So there's a lot to consider with that. And I'm going to throw out, this is maybe not technically an ethical conversation, but can we talk a little bit about comments and commenting? And also, I would like to talk about the blogging culture of I liked you, now like me, or I followed you, now follow me. So there are two different components that I think that, you know, given the socialization around blogs, that are worth addressing in an ethical conversation. But the first is when it comes to comments. And part of what spurred us to even think about doing an ethics and blogging conversation was trolls. And trolls are those nasty people who just leave you nasty comments, and they just do. So how do you deal with trolls? How do you, first of all, don't be a troll, right? Just don't be one. And then also, how do you deal with them? And Randy, I think that, you know, any advice that you would have on how to deal with just nasty comments?
Yeah, well, I guess my first advice is that, kind of like you said, that the trolls are there, and you can't let them hurt your feelings. I remember when I was young in my early days of website web mastery and blogging, somebody would post something mean or nasty, and it hurt me to the core. It really made my heart cry. And you really have to have a tough skin, and you have to expect that you're going to get that. So just expect that it's going to happen, and when it does happen, you just ignore it. I think I did a video that I posted on one of my blogs a year or so ago about how to deal with trolls. And the best thing to do is you don't give them the attention that they crave, that their mothers never gave them. You just ignore them. Because if you give them the attention, if you engage them, well, now that's why they're there, and that really gets them excited. That's their whole reason for living. So if you just ignore them, they'll come back and they'll try again. Hey, you're not giving me enough attention. You just ignore them, and then they'll just go play somewhere else.
So a piggyback question on that. I read the Pro Blogging book, and you know it's a little dated now because it's a couple of years old. But within that, they said that when you get those trolls and you get those nasty comments, if you have a really solid community built up around your blog, other users or other readers in your audience might jump on the trolls on your behalf and comment back and say,
yeah, you can't do that. Don't allow that. You gotta you cut it off. You just delete it. Some blogs, WordPress and Drupal, you can there's a plugin I think called Cave or Trollman or something like that, where you mark it and the troll sees it. That person with that cookie or that IP, they still see their comment, but nobody else can see it. So it's like they think everybody's ignoring them. So because if you delete it, you know, that's the easy way to do it. But then they know that you saw it and they know that you took the time to delete it. So you don't allow people to jump in and defend you, because now you're engaging the troll, and now it's on, and now his whole reason for living is you know, everybody's arguing back, or you know, they're getting what they want. So ignore them or cave them or caveman them, or I forget what you call it, where they nobody else can see, and it's like they're yelling at a wall, and they think nobody cares about them, and they'll move on.
Yeah, I have to say,
well, I was going to say, nope, it's my turn. So I was just going to say, in general, be nice and act with some grace and some elegance in your interaction with everybody, and that includes the trolls. It's very hard when somebody attacks you in public, and that also includes not just commenting on your blog, but taking it to another platform and saying, like, I feel like everybody needs to know, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I saw a horrible example of this recently between somebody and a business, and it's, you know, what you have to remember is, obviously, go ahead and, so I suggest that you comment and acknowledge that you've seen it, so that everybody else can see that you've seen it and that you just haven't, that you've seen it and that you're on it. So, just comment, acknowledge, and just say, thank you for your input, and then just kind of cold shoulder them. But don't, and then as Randy said, don't engage them again, because they're going to come back and they're going to come back and they're going to come back, and most adults are going to see that, and they're going to see that that behavior is not okay, and that there wasn't a true intention, like they're, that troll isn't really looking out for your good by bashing that person, or they just are a nasty person, and this is their current, this is their current target. So just always keeping your calm and giving grace and just being nice and elegant and calm.
Right.
What I would suggest.
And just like that, what I do, because I've been attacked like that, I've been attacked every way, but when it's on somebody else's blog or in a public forum on Facebook or whatever, sometimes, and I've done this a few times, it doesn't always work, but you can diffuse them. Like if somebody is saying what a horrible dresser I am, well, instead of arguing and saying, hey, I only buy my clothes at whatever the fancy store is, diffuse them and say, yeah, you're right, I shop at Kmart. And just diffuse them. You take away all their fire by kind of owning up to it. Sometimes you can't do that; it doesn't make sense. But I've done that lots of times. Where you agree with them if it's something. Again, depending on what it is. Yeah,
it's super
I don't know how to dress. If it doesn't have a Granimals tag, I don't know how to dress. Okay, so.
The big takeaway though is don't blog and drink, right? Like don't have 5 beers and start to answer comments. So that's the big takeaway.
That would be a good one.
One more thing I want to throw out. No, my turn. Real quick. Always stay, and on a personal blog maybe it doesn't matter, but like one of my blogs is I'm trying to gain attention for my big adventure next year that we're talking about at the Salton Sea in California. And anytime I blog there, and on some of my other blogs as a business, always stay, I think it's a good idea to stay politically correct.
Yeah.
Stay right down the middle of everything, and don't get involved. So like on my adventure blog, I don't want to go posting my opinions about gun control or about President Obama or whatever, because you don't want to alienate the people that, you want to get everybody to come and to love the event. They don't, they're not. That's me. They love me in my personal blog, and I can spout off about whatever I want. So be careful when you're posting and being online about just being politically correct to your audience, unless you don't care what they think, or you want everybody to love your views on gun control or the president. Sorry.
Right. So my topic was really kind of like do no harm, like be considerate of others, and that kind of is the same thing with you as far as just stay down the middle of the road, stick to the topic that you're talking about, be considerate when you're making a comment.
For something that's, especially a business. But on your personal blog, maybe you don't want to do that. You might want to go the total opposite of that. But especially for a business or something where you want everybody to come and view, you don't want to chase people away, because they'll get pissed off, they'll argue with you, or they'll just leave.
I agree. Well, I have a post that's going live tomorrow morning, and it says it's about Christmas, and it says Christmas. And I thought, should I say holidays? Should I try to include all the holidays that are in December and address them all? But I don't know about them all. What I know is Christmas, so that's what I'm going to write about. But it'll be interesting to see. I thought about, is somebody going to get a...
See, if I saw that and if I saw that you use the word holidays, I wouldn't go back. That pisses me off. But somebody else sees that you use the word Christmas, and they're going to get upset. Yeah, that's a tough one. But
so I'm going to go with what I know.
Remember, everybody needs to remember when it comes to whatever you post is that it's public. It is public. And there is a true story of a very big blogger who started blogging because she was frustrated with her job, and guess what? She got fired because they read her post. So just remember that it's public. What you're putting out there is for everybody to read. So if you don't want your grandma to read it, then don't post it.
I think that's an excellent way to end this show. So we're right at 30 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We could talk about this for a week straight, so we're just going to cut ourselves off at 30 minutes. Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week.